So welcome to my review of River City Girls, a brand new game by WayForward, the creators of the Shantae series, and Arc System Works. I'm gonna get into this. Is this game worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Okay, I first saw the trailers for this quite some time ago, and I was like, okay, you caught me with the graphics. I like the 16-bit, 32-bit graphics, a kind of a brawling style of action RPG. And then I'm like, wait a second, River City Girls? Is this a sequel to River City Ransom? It's a spiritual successor. Yes, River City Ransom came out back in the day on the NES, and it was awesome. It was an action RPG where you traverse an entire city, fight wave after wave of enemies. You can buy items, you can buy soup in the towns. It's ridiculous. We had a lot of fun back then, and it was kind of like open world. And what this style of game is, it's kind of like Scott Pilgrim, where you go through an entire city and you fight wave after wave of enemies and you gain money. And with that money, you can buy items, you can buy healing items, and buy more moves. So if you've ever played Scott Pilgrim, you're really going to be at home with this. The best way I can describe it is, it's like Scott Pilgrim, but a little bit more open world and quite a few more places to go. To start the game, you can pick two characters, Kyoko or Misako. You can pick both these characters, and what your mission is, your boyfriends have been kidnapped, and it is up to you to go through the city and beat the hell out of everybody and rescue them. So the story is very simple in that regard. The next thing is, you can pick two different difficulty levels, normal or hard. I play the game on normal. There's friendly fire, you can turn that on or off. What that means is, if you turn it off, you're not gonna hit your friend while you're doing two-player mode. And if you keep it on, you'll not only hit the enemies, but you'll hit your friend and have a great amount of fun. That's a mode that you will be arguing with your friends, so have that on at your discretion. So I described the game's storyline. It's very simple. You're two girls going through the city to rescue your boyfriends, but it's simple in that regard, but the way the presentation is really, really nice. A lot of the story is delivered through manga-style cutscenes. So it's like you're reading a manga from Japan, and it's going from panel to panel, showing your characters, interacting with other characters, explaining the story to you. And also, when you run into characters throughout the city, which will be quite a lot, and you talk to them, their profile pictures will come up, and your character as well, and you will traverse back and forth. Maybe a character needs a side quest done, so that's something that you need to go and solve for them. But the way the presentation is of the story, it's very anime, it's very cool, and that presentation is really excellent. So the game world is big. It's split into 6 different city sections, and there's a lot of different ways to get to those sections, but we'll get into that in a second. You start off in the school, your boyfriends have been captured, and you're interviewing people and beating up everybody to try and find them. That's the beginning of the adventure, and when you beat enemies, they drop money, you collect money, and later on you can use those in shops to buy items that enhance you, like certain accessories that will give you certain stat boosts, or you can use that money, and this is the recommended thing, to buy certain moves at the dojo. And there is a lot of moves to buy, and they cost a lot of money, so there's a lot of grinding you can do in this game. So you can just try to rush through it, but that's not what I would recommend. I'd say spend your time going back and forth, grinding enemies, getting a lot of money, upgrading your moves, and increasing your level, so your level always increases in the game. You also have a power gauge, and you have power up attacks that you can use on enemies, and by beating up the enemies, you replenish that power gauge. So you can just do your regular attacks, you have a jump, you have a punch, you have a kick, and you have combos through them, and then you have your power up attacks. So there's a lot of different ways to fight enemies, and I would really recommend playing this with a friend. I played through the whole game with a friend of mine, and we had a really good time because you can double team enemies. But that being said, the enemies can be a little cheap at times, and you do have a block button as well, but you'll be going in there doing your combos, but sometimes they'll just hit you, and you'll be like, God damn it! So there is an incentive to level up and to get better moves. On certain screens you will get to, the screen will lock on you, and you cannot leave that particular screen until you beat all of the enemies throughout there. And some other moves that you can do, you can jump off the walls and hit enemies. You can also recruit enemies. So you might beat an enemy, they beg for their life, you can recruit them and call them in anytime to help you out. And while we're still on gameplay and graphics here, there's a few nods to the original River City Ransom throughout. And I just want to say about the graphics, I love the detail here. Whenever you go into a brand new section, it is incredible how much work they have put into these backgrounds. I was always like, oh my god, you go into like a video game shop and the characters are all drawn really awesome. You can see all the video games in the background, or the details of a particular like 80s style of mall. I kept getting into new sections going, oh my god, like look at these things. And not all of it is just battling enemies wave after wave. There's obviously boss encounters and you have to do certain patterns you have to figure out to get around them. There's also sections where you need to do kind of some action platforming where you jump from one section to another to get past a particular level. And by solving particular side quests will open up different sections of the city. So you might get to a certain part of the city and you're like, I don't know where to go. And you'll talk to a character and they say, hey, if you give me this item, I will open up this section for you. So you're always going back and forth. There's always a lot to do. There's always the immediate grind of fighting enemies. But if you are fighting some particular enemies and you die, the great thing in 2-player mode is the other player can come up to you and stomp on you. You can use the stomp attack on enemies, but if you do it on a downed teammate, you will bring their like angel back into their body, their ethereal self back into their body, and then they jump up and they have half hit points. So that's one way to do it. Or if you're 2 players fighting in a chained up screen where you can't leave and one of your characters dies, if that other character beats all the enemies in the room, you're okay. As soon as you get into the next room, you can come back with the other player. So there's a lot of skill here in that sense on how to balance dying and living. Sometimes I would tell my friend to die intentionally if there's one enemy left on the screen so I wouldn't get swarmed if I was trying to bring him back to life. Now we get to the music in the game, and this is a really high bit of the review. This is a really high bit. The music in this game is awesome. Yes, we have that 16-bit, 32-bit kind of background, kind of techno beat, kind of fun music, but we also have songs with lyrics that are completely sung throughout the game. And I was like, oh my god, am I back in the 80s and 90s for an anime? It was really great to hear some of these songs, and they really add atmosphere to the overall game, and it kind of sets it apart from other beat-em-up style of games. The music is created by Nate Wants to Battle, Chipzel, and Christina V. And I gotta say, they've all done a wonderful job bringing this all together and creating a really good soundtrack that I swear to God you will want to own after this game. So I've talked a lot about all of the gameplay and a lot of the things I like. A couple of shortcomings here, unfortunately. One of the things that happened to me while I was playing this game, and it happened 3 times, so I do have to mention it. I want to say, I'm sure this is going to get patched, but the game hard crashed for me. I was playing it on the PS4, and it hard crashed 3 times. All at randomly different times. I couldn't figure out what was causing it. And the great thing about the game is it autosaves. The game autosaves all the time. So if you are with a friend and you get to a section and something was to go wrong, as it did for me and my friends, it usually saved the screen before. So you don't have to make up too much time. There was one time it crashed and we had just gone in and bought power-ups for our characters, some enhanced abilities, and we had lost those, but we just went straight back in and bought them again. But that's a random thing. I'm playing an early version of the game, so I'm sure that'll get patched in the future. The other thing that kind of was frustrating, and it's a small nitpick, but I do have to mention it in the review because it happened to us so many times, is that when you're playing 2-player mode and you both walk into a new section, and you're not completely into the new section, and if you hit the square button, sometimes it'll transfer that character back into the other screen. That could get kind of, insane, because that means the character who's still left on that screen has to go back, grab that character and bring you back to the screen again. And if you do it again and you go back, it can be very frustrating. If your character is close to a doorway, and if you hit the square button, you automatically you want to hit the enemy, you'll get transferred into the next room. So that can be a little bit crazy. That being said, those are my nitpicks of the game. But overall, for the price of the game, this is a budget title. This is not a full price game. I think if you're a fan of beat 'em up style of games, you have a friend and you want to hang out and play a game together and just kind of level up and beat wave after wave of enemies and double team characters. There's a lot of fun to be had here. The soundtrack is excellent. The visuals are incredible. The animation is really wonderful. And it takes you back to a simpler time and just walking around with your friends, going into a shop, and you can both buy different items from the money that you claimed. Really a lot of fun. But remember one thing, if you die in the game, you lose money. So try not to die. That's the incentive to stay alive. But I really like overall what they've done with this game. It's a revisit to the past, and they've done a really great job. But there's also physical copies available right now. Limited run games. This is not a plug for limited run. They're getting a free plug for me, because for anybody who enjoys the game, maybe they play it digitally, they're like, oh, I wish there was a physical copy of the game. There's a Nintendo Switch version, and there's a PS4 version of this game. There was also some limited edition versions. Those already sold out. But I tell you, here's my honest review of the game. I like the game so much that I went onto the limited run website and I ordered a physical copy of the Switch version and the PS4 version, because I like these style of games, and they're very accessible, that you can pick it up, play single player just with yourself, or invite a friend to do couch co-op. And I mean, how often did you do couch co-op back in the day? And it's a wonderful revisit of that experience, and it's a lot of fun to play. I had so much fun playing this during the week. Watch out for the cheap enemies at times. They'll drive you crazy. Level up, buy better moves, and kick the crap out of them. So anyways, guys, until next time.